Get in the know. Non-stop Vikings talk. It's Purple Daily on Score North and ScoreNorth.com.
Football.
And actually, it's Purple Access. It is Judd. It is Chip Scoggins. Of course, we switch off between Chipper and Tyler Fornes of VikingsWire.com. Chip, obviously, columnist for the Star Tribune. Ross Brendel producing for us. And plenty to get to as the Vikings are currently on a 5-game win streak. But before we do, want to shout out at least one of our sponsors, and that would be our friends at Park Tavern. Park Tavern, of course, a great place to hold events if you got a group gathering. Or how about this? The Park Tavern Thanksgiving from 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. Tableside buffet available for $23.95 or a single plate dinner for $16.95. Call today for reservations, 952-929-6810, and also get your Black Friday and Park Tavern gift cards while you are there. All right, Chip Scoggins, you're out there right now at the Vikings. What is your feeling on what this team has done and one of the great stories in the entire league this season? And that would be Josh Dobbs.
Yeah, I think it's probably the story of the NFL to this date when you look at where this team has come from, what they've endured, what they're doing now with Josh Dobbs. It's a remarkable story, and I think you have to give a lot of credit to Kevin O'Connell for how he's managed this situation. When you think about it, I go back to being in Lambeau Field after that game, and it just felt, even though they won, it felt like doom and gloom. You wondered, what are they going to do at the trade deadline? Are they going to start trading guys? You wondered how they're going to win with their quarterback situation and not having Justin Jefferson. And for them to rip off, that was part of it, but for them to rip off 5 straight wins and not miss a beat with Josh Dobbs at quarterback. And I wrote about this for my column today, Judd, that if you knew nothing about this situation, right, knew nothing about Josh Dobbs, nothing about the Vikings, and you just sat down and watched the Vikings to play the last 2 games, you would not know that they basically got a quarterback that doesn't know the offense, hasn't had any time learning it, doesn't know the coaches, doesn't know the players. It functioned like an offense should function. And the way he moved the ball and the plays that he made, it's a remarkable story that's you just don't see happen very often in this league.
How much credit, Chip, do you think we should be giving O'Connell here too? Because it strikes me as he's the common thread. He's the guy. Look, Kirk Cousins without KOC put up really good stats, but he certainly didn't have the effectiveness that he's had. And now taking an entirely different QB at a random point in the season, bringing him in, and the Falcons win is impressive, but that was almost a schoolyard game. The win against the Saints was a week of practice, and O'Connell's incorporating different things. It feels to me like this is a nod to how important coaching is and can be.
I think he absolutely is and should be in the discussion for Coach of the Year at this point in the season. We'll see where it goes from here. But I thought the Atlanta, they were impressive for 2 different reasons. Obviously the Atlanta one, where you're basically guiding a quarterback through a game, having to translate verbiage from the way he understands it to how you call it on the fly in the middle of a game, saying, you're going to have this on your right side, you're going to have this on the left side of the field, here's what you're looking for. I mean, it was a masterclass on how a coach can handle a game. And I thought last week, when you're looking at we saw the Wildcat, we saw different things that he's using with this offense. And to do this without Jefferson, Madison goes out, Hawkinson was beat up, KJ Osborne's out. This is you look at the things that they're overcoming, and he's putting guys in position to still make plays and to fill important roles when they weren't being asked to, and then allowing Dobbs to call plays that accentuate what he does well. Obviously, the off-script things, that's just a guy who's super talented, and I don't know how much coaching goes into that. I don't know if you saw the video on the sideline where he had the one touchdown run, and O'Connell was just kind of like flabbergasted. He's like, what just happened there? But what he's doing to build an offense basically on the fly around a guy who has a completely different skill set than Cousins does. And the thing I looked this up, I mean, his scrambling ability, Dobbs, he takes off and he does his Houdini act. That's really cool to watch. He's completing 67% of his passes. His passing stats now are better than his other stops, and he doesn't have a long history of big resume, but his passing has been a bright spot, I think. Throwing to receivers he doesn't know how that fast they are, how they come out of breaks, as well as guys that have been in OTAs, mini camps, summer, all that stuff. His passing has been a revelation to me.
And what impresses me about this too, from both the Dobbs perspective and O'Connell perspective, Chip, is this. We both covered a ton of coaches, and I think it's safe to say football coaches are, a lot of them, wedded to their philosophy, right? Like, Childress was, I'm a West Coast guy. We're going to make this work. What I want to do is, to quote him, a kick-ass offense. But what O'Connell's done is mid-season, he's basically accepted and taken a guy who's very unlike his previous QB, who, to your point, they were devastated when he was lost, and he has allowed him to incorporate his own game. And I heard, I think it was your colleague at the Star Tribune, Ben Gessling, asked the question post-game Sunday about the direct snap to Chandler when that got put in, and O'Connell's like, this past week. So they didn't even have that in for Kirk. My point is, it's common sense to be flexible. That being said, football coaches are usually not flexible.
Yeah, and Dobbs talked about this yesterday at his press thing in the locker room. That he said, because we were talking about just how fast this has gone and learning, different schemes. And he said that not just O'Connell, but position coach and Wes Phillips have basically said, what concepts are you comfortable running? Like, what do you feel most comfortable doing? Because you're not going to have the whole playbook, right? I mean, they spent a year and a half putting this in, and so you can't expect the guy to come in 2 weeks and know it. So, but they're saying, what things do you do well from your past experiences? How you ran there? What makes you comfortable? And then they're crafting that within their own system. So that speaks to how flexible this staff is, and it's not just how we do it. You got to adjust. It's like, no, what do you do well? What do you feel comfortable running? So we can maximize that, and then we'll piece it together with what we do. And so it's been a brilliant exercise in watching a coaching staff really adjust in real time to a completely different set of circumstances than what they thought they were going to have. Because I mean, just think about how different Dobbs is as a quarterback than Cousins. And it's not like you have a right tackle or even a wide receiver who might be a little bit slower, a little bit faster, whatever. This is a guy who the whole skill set's different than Cousins. And for them to keep winning. And the other thing, Judd, those two wins, top 10 defenses. Now you can say, I mean, if you look at total defense right now, both Atlanta and Saints are in the top 10 in total defense in the NFL. So these are not just terrible defenses he's doing this against.
No, and he's clearly he clearly now is playing with the confidence that I'm sure you can't play with when you're with the Cardinals, who are a train wreck. So how much are you buying this entire thing? So they were 1-4. They've won 5 consecutive games. They still are in, or they are in a soft part of the schedule now, Broncos and Bears, then the bye, then a Raiders team that certainly is playing better football since Antonio Pierce took over for Josh McDaniels. But how much are you buying this? Because I would liken it a little bit to 2017, where it feels like a magic carpet ride. I just can't decide where it might end because it got off to such a weird start.
Yeah, it's well, a couple things. The offense, I think, Dobbs, what he brings them is the ability to improvise, which we have not seen. Think about the plays that he can turn a sack into a 20-yard gain. And so we haven't seen that. So that's and those are things you can't really script, right? Or think, how's he going to – those just kind of are impromptu. To me, though, Judd, the defense. I mean, the defense. Look what Brian Flores has done. I was just looking at the stats today, and I was talking to some guys in the locker room because I'm going to do a column on this for Sunday. They are – I want to make sure I get it right. 13th in total defense in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
I believe they're – is it 10th or 14th in scoring defense? I mean, this is a defense a year ago that was at the bottom of both of those categories. Now they're in the middle of the pack and climbing. they've only given up 19, I think, points during this winning streak. I was talking to Harrison Smith about this today in the locker room, and he was saying, normally when a team scouts you and starts getting their game plan, where it's like, okay, we got to make sure we take care of this guy. This is the focus. He said, yeah, people are probably doing that with Danielle Hunter, right? We got to make sure he doesn't wreck our game plan. But it's typically one or two guys, right? He feels like in their defense, every week it's been someone different. Like Harrison had a big game. Danielle, Josh Mattelus, Wanham had a tremendous game the other day. Cam Bynum has come up. So you're seeing different guys in this defense. It's not just one or two. You're seeing different guys really changing the outcome of the game. And I think that speaks to Flores and him being able to put different guys in position to be playmakers.
Flores can't get enough credit, Chip. It's unbelievable. And look, I think the reason why we're seeing such a plethora of guys stand out is because of scheme. This defense, and it sort of proves it, the Donatel thing was, this defense isn't this bad. And it's proven it. Now, it's not great. Like, it's not full of Pro Bowl players. I think the interior of the defensive line is suspect. I think once you get past Hunter, the defensive ends are suspect. But what he's doing as far as different schemes and different ideas and different looks and just causing mass confusion, I think is great. And by the way, here's my plea. Can you please in your column say that this should be called the 44 defense? Because Josh Mattelus is the linchpin. He's the difference of, like, what are they doing? It's the 44, much like I believe it was the 46 in Chicago when Gary Fensick, of all people, was the linchpin guy. I've been begging. This needs to be called the 44 defense because it has no identity. It's not a 3-4. It's mass confusion. I think Mattelus deserves to be the guy whose number it's named after.
It is. I was talking to Josh today too, and that guy just shows up.
He's
like
incredibly
saw it again
smart.
last week where he's rushing. He comes on a blitz. He's flushing the quarterback out. He has benefited more from Flores than anyone. And I asked Josh this too. I said, take Flores out of it. Do you think this was a moment in your career where you were going to elevate regardless of who the coordinator was? And he said, I think I was. This is a time in my career where I felt like I was going to make a step. It was a contract year. I've had experience. He said, I felt like I was going to make a big jump in my career. He said, however, Flores really, really helped that. He said he's really, really helped that. I think the way he did it, it was smiling. That we talked about when Flores came in here, that how he was going to be able to use different pieces of this defense and make them splash, pop and really use them creatively and in ways that can impact the offense. And to me, Mattelus, he's the kind of the poster child of that. I mean, what he's done with him this year and moving him around and him responding and making the plays he's a difference maker. He's absolutely. I like your idea though. I'll run that by him, see if they should change
44. It's the 44. Yeah. And here's the thing too is, so he is super smart. Like, he is clearly he's talented, but he's probably smarter than talented, which, by the way, is preferable because physically Lewis Cine is probably a more talented human being, but he can't get on the field. And my opinion is it's because Metellus' football IQ is so high. But I would say this to your question. I don't think there's any way in hell that Josh Metellus is playing this type of role this year, because Bynum does not deserve to be benched. Harrison Smith ain't being benched, right? So what's the role? I mean, you have a coordinator here who's literally taken a guy and said, you are a hybrid linebacker and safety. And I don't care that it might not make sense to the majority of this room. I think Josh Metellus, if he had left here and signed elsewhere and got a chance to play, could have taken off eventually. But I don't think, Chipper, it's in 2023. I really don't.
Yeah, it probably was the scheme. I don't want to say it's completely a scheme because that does a disservice to Metellus too as a player. Now, would he be this good in someone else's scheme? Probably. I would guess probably not. I think what Flores is doing is really, really brought him out. And I'm curious now, without Jordan Hicks, does his role change even more? Do you see him, Metellus, even more? I mean, obviously, Ivan Pace is going to get a more of a prominent role, and that's a big loss. when you talk about, it's funny. I wouldn't have said so much last year because I just didn't think I wasn't sure what Hicks's impact was. I mean, he was a veteran, but the way he's played this year, and even like when he got injured and he came back out, first play, he stuffs the guy in the hole on 3rd and 1, right at the line of scrimmage. He's been really good this year, and so to hear the coaches and players talk about what his absence is going to mean, I don't think we can minimize that, Judd. I think he's been really good, and just in terms of also you hear Flores talk about being the quarterback back there and the green dot and getting everybody lined up. I think communication is a huge thing in this offense or in this defense because they allow guys to do different things and they can adjust based on what they see before the snap. I want to see if that part of it suffers in his absence.
Does Mattelus become the green dot guy?
No, I think it's Ivan.
Okay.
Now Flores said that in practice they have a number of guys that wear the green dot just so they get used to it. I think Troy Dye is going to have to do some of it, but maybe they do have Mattelus in practice too, just in case he does it. But I think they preferably have a linebacker do it. So, but I don't know. We'll see. But it's that's something to pay attention to because I do think that they are given the freedom to not freelance, but make checks based on what they see on the field. And I think Hicks was really, really smart about doing that and relaying it to everybody else that's around him.
Best guess, do we see Justin Jefferson on Sunday?
No.
Okay. That's what I thought.
He just did his press conference a few minutes ago before I came on here, and I was talking to Harrison, so I didn't get it, but I saw a couple guys that had mentioned that they asked Justin, what's the final decision on this? How, that go? And Justin said, I get the final decision. I know my body. I'm the one that,
Good for him.
I'm the one that's putting my body out there and as it should, right? You should never have he knows his body better than anyone. He should be the one that's making that call. So I don't know where he's at. I think they're obviously ramping him up each day a little bit more and seeing how it responds and deal with soreness or whatever that you have to go through. So, but I don't think it'll be this week.
I think without the contract, it makes sense too, from his perspective. Like at some point in time, he has to draw a line here. I would be tempted, and I don't know what the window is going to be at by this point. I think it would be the tail end, but if they're not going to play him Sunday, I'd be tempted to hold him out through that Bears game, get the bye week, and then come back for the game in Vegas, just because he has to be careful. Like, I will say that the worst, it would be devastating for the Vikings and him if that blows. And they've won 5 games without him. Addison's been phenomenal. I did not know he was this good. I know he was good. But yeah, good for him if he's going to at least put his foot down and say, I didn't get paid, so I can't exactly trust that if I get hurt, I don't get paid.
Yeah, and it's like his health is obviously, you have to feel 100% sure that he's ready to go. It's not how the team is performing. It has to be his health. But you look at guys that have stepped up in his absence. I mean, Hawkinson's been terrific. And he clearly has a rapport with Dobbs, and is much the same way that, when he got traded, Kirk had that instant connection with him that he just went to him. I think Seifert had the stat today that since Dobbs has been here, I think Hawkinson's been targeted 11 times a game or 12 times a game. You're right, though, Addison. Goodness gracious. His body control and some of these catches he makes, though I go back to the one in Atlanta, the sideline one where he's getting drilled and be able to get his feet down. That's a remarkable catch. I mean, that is a big time. I don't know if it's on the same level with JJ's at Buffalo last year, but it wasn't far off when you think about how hard he got hit and still get his feet down. That was a pretty remarkable catch, but he's terrific. And so I'm curious to see when he does come back, when you have all those guys together and a quarterback who can move around and buy time. Because that's the other thing is, like, we talk about the scramble, but think about the play that Dobbs made where he was running around. It looked like he was going to run, and the defense sucked up, and all of a sudden he dropped it over the top to Hawkinson. For a quarterback to be able to do that, I mean, I don't know what the front office will do after this year in quarterback play, but I do think what we've seen with Dobbs probably solidifies in their mind, okay, we want a mobile quarterback and the guy that can do some of it. He might not be as good as Dobbs is scrambling and running, but a guy that can keep plays alive with his feet. Just it puts so much stress on the defense.
That's a recess play, Chip Scoggins. That's what that is. That's a recess play. And the fact that when he scrambles, and that's the one thing Kirk does not like. Kirk is not a fan of recess. Kirk likes things to be on schedule. He likes to know when his classes are. He likes to know when the bell is going to ring. Like I watch Dobbs and he's creating. But that's where O'Connell gets credit because he appears to be okay with allowing that to happen. In fact, I didn't like the second half as much on Sunday because I felt like they pulled back on that. What I did like was O'Connell stood at that podium, and unlike PJ Fleck, he took the blame, but then explained what he did wrong. I really liked that because he seemed cognizant of the fact that he had himself gone too conservative when opening it up in the first half is what had worked.
Yeah, and I understood his line of thinking because you get a big lead, and he liked the way the defense was playing. He didn't feel like they were going to be able to score enough points if you didn't do something crazy and throw a pick to him and a pick six, and that's how a game gets into it. So I understand. We see it a lot. Teams get big lead. Coaches like, okay, let's just run it and try to milk this thing and get out of here as quickly as we can. And sometimes that comes back to bite you, and it didn't in this case. I think he just felt like the way their defense was playing, they were still going to be in good shape. But it's O'Connell said it yesterday. He said we still need to be smart about not just turning him into a running back, right? Like that's not what you want because you got to preserve his health. It's picking your spots. It's taking this skill set that he has and incorporating it into the overall game plan. And some of the stuff is just off script that he just does when the pocket collapses. You don't plan and scheme for that. But it's I think how many did he have one or two design runs Sunday? I know at least one. I can't remember if there's another one, but it was a great call.
Mm-hmm.
So I think they're going to do probably more and more of that. Not like 10 times, but if you have 3-4 design runs, that could be a huge weapon for you.
Where Kevin has to be careful though, and I think what he didn't get, and I think he struggles with this at times, but he needs to keep his defense off the field. And I think at times he's like, because I mean, Flores is doing a lot with those guys, and they substitute, but they also, and that Falcons touchdown late, that was one where they were just gassed, and it felt like Sunday, like they're playing well, they deserve credit, but you've got to keep them off the field as much as possible. And I felt like O'Connell didn't get that because he's such an offensive guy. So it was interesting, but look, if that's their biggest problem, that's a great problem to have for a team that was 0-3 and 1-4 at one point.
Well, and the other thing about this too is like they basically have no running game. They're doing this with now, I like Chandler. When I watch Chandler in there, I'm like, that guy has some juice. Like, let's see more of Chandler. And I think we obviously will this week, not knowing what Alex Madison's situation is. But when you watched him, he has a burst. Like, you want to see more from him. And I love that they ran the Wildcat for him. That was creative. So we'll see if he get if they can get that part going. Because if they could just get a little bit more consistent with the run game, it doesn't have to be great, right? It doesn't have to be perfect, but just a little bit more. I think that even makes that offense more dynamic.
Good stuff. Okay. Roscoe's going to chip in 1 second here, but before he does that, I want to talk to you, my friends, about Livia Weight Control Center's pre-Black Friday event. Join today. You're going to get 50% off your personalized program. You're going to lose up to 10 pounds in the first 2 weeks. You're going to lose up to 20 pounds or more before 2024. Imagine that. December, you're dropping weight, not gaining it. January 1st gets here and you ring in the new year with a lot of clothes that don't fit today. Fitting. It's the best offer of the year and runs through Friday. 855-GO-LIVEA, Livia.com. Livia, Livea.com, guys. It's a lifestyle change, but you don't have to change your life. I'm here to tell you it's effective, and they're going to help you keep the weight off. Livia, Livea.com. Roscoe, you got a question?
Yeah, you brought up the Magic Carpet Ride that so far is the 2023, hopefully well into 2024 season, the parallels that you can make, the 2017 Case Keenum Minnesota Vikings. One thing that was so interesting about that Magic Carpet Ride were times where you thought maybe it was going to end, where there maybe was a loss that you didn't expect or want to see? And then Case Keenum and the team got right back on the carpet and kept it going. I'm not wanting the Vikings to lose a game anytime soon, but a part of you does want to see how the team responds when they inevitably do lose a game. I don't think they're going to win out and go all the way to the Super Bowl without a loss. So at some point, a loss is likely. Maybe Chip, I'll start with you, and then Judd, you can respond how you would like. But again, not willing or wanting the team to lose, but it is kind of important to see how they respond when that does happen, isn't it?
I think we have a pretty good idea of this team was 0-3, right? And we were talking about, you got to trade this guy, you got to trade, you got to look, we got to tank, you got to look ahead. And so the team has already shown a willing or ability to not get stuck in that rut where, okay, this is a 3-win season, or this is, there's enough veteran leadership on this team when you're talking about Harrison and Daniil, and I'd put JJ in there too when he comes back. They have enough good players that I think you look around at this league, it's like they should. I just don't see this team really bottoming out if they have a loss and it's going to go on skid, or they're going to come plummeting back to earth because they've had turnover at quarterback. I just think they're in a good spot, and I think they'll be able to bounce back. I just think it's being in this locker room the last few weeks or throughout this winning streak, you get a sense of there's definitely a lot of confidence in this group. And even when they're 0-3, I think it was more, some of us rolled our eyes at it a little bit. They felt it was more turnovers than it was they felt like they were self-imploding more than they were just overmatched. And I agree with that. So I don't think there's any doubt in my mind that this team would bounce back from a loss or two. I just think they have the leadership they have and the players that they have. And more, not more than players because it's a players league, but Judd, this is just a really good coach team. I mean, they're well coached.
He's good.
And you can just see it. I mean, offense, defense, they're really well coached.
I think what I like to see is, and 17 was weird because Bradford got hurt. Keenum came in, that they lost to Pittsburgh, and then they came back and really went on a great ride. But I think what I like to see is adversity. Like I kept saying that a year ago. You won 13 games. Let's see some adversity. What does the coach do when adversity hits? What does the quarterback do? I feel like this team already has its fair share. And like Josh Dobbs is not a kid. He's been with 8 teams. He had won one game with the Cardinals. So like there's an adversity that's hit and this team has weathered that storm. And the individuals that I most want to see handle it sort of have. Kirk Cousins is out. That Kirk Cousins, to Chip's point, that Packers game was like a loss. It felt like a loss. Justin Jefferson has now missed 5 games. So while, yes, I think they're going to lose for sure, and I do not think that they're a Super Bowl team, I don't think we need to see a ton more adversity because it feels like it hit. So like I would guess that if they lose on Sunday, they're going to bounce back and beat the Bears. But it's a good question. And the difference is this team's already taken punches. Some, by the way, self-inflicted. Like that 1-4 start was their fault and they deserve heat for it. Like I'm not backing off that. Hang on the damn football, but they've weathered it. So I think Chip's right. All right. Great stuff, Chipper. Let you get back to work out there at TCO Performance Center. Roscoe, thank you very much. Purple Access. Remember, thank you to our friends from Park Tavern, Livia Weight Control Centers as well. We'll see you next time.
See you, boys.